Krystaline Energy Tools, and also different shapes have different meanings. I'm sure this is like maybe one of those sacred geometry kind of things to it, where the shape does make a big difference, and even the slightest error in the shape of the energy tool can prevent it from performing to its fullest potential, or maybe even doing the job at all. So why don't you got the floor, all the Krystaline Energy tools that you got. You tell us how they work, the different shapes, different sizes, and the science behind them, and well, you got the floor.
The story behind the tools that I use, now the majority of them are of a pyramid design. Some are ring designs with different types of design within the ring. One of the people that I met on this journey from Alberta, Canada, his name is Wayne Gatos, and the name of his company is Krystaline Incorporated. So he is what I call the tool maker. He makes all of these different tools. His energy level is extremely high. He's very knowledgeable in the whole universal aspect of energy. His job, his job, is to sit in a bathtub 2 to 3 hours a day to run energy into the earth grid, to clear out that earth grid and any adjacent grids in order for the ascension process to happen on this planet within humanity, which is probably going to happen in a couple hours from right now. So there's a lot of energy movement happening. That's what his job is. In order for him to make money to survive, to eat and pay his mortgage, he builds these tools and sells them to different people. And I myself am a distributor of the tools in North America. So the tools themselves, the geometry of the tools is, as you said, very specific. One of the main tools I use is called a neutralization ring. And this is a ring based on Sanjanivi Sanskrit design, designed to remove general negative energies off of your body. So when you stand over this ring, you feel a pulling sensation, almost like a grounding sensation of energy leaving your body. So it kind of loosens things up, so that if there is a stuck entity, by standing within the field of this ring, it'll help to loosen up the energies around it so that you can more easily get to it. One of the bigger tools I use is something called a Vesica Pisces. The Vesica Pisces is a form of a pyramid, an opposed pyramid at the base. And this tool is designed to facilitate with the divine feminine energies that are around us, that is leading us into the ascension process. So we're leaving from a masculine energy into a divine feminine, which can be considered, let's say, Aquarius, the age of Aquarius sort of thing. So the tools have their specific times to be used for different things. Now, other tools that we carry, there's one called a beamer, which is much like a crystal wand, if you will. It contains noble gases within it, which means that the gases don't mix with anything else. When you use that tool with intent, it'll work in specific ways on your body and on your food. Anything you want to use it on, you can add energy to whatever you want to with this wand. It's a great charging tool. So if you want to charge, let's say, an apple with a lot of vitamin C or something like vitamin A, you can just intend through your mind and consciousness to raise the rate of vitamin A within it. So those are the basic tools. They're all based on basically a pyramid design. We carry a triple pyramid with a sun ring within it. Now the sun ring is the same as a neutralization ring, except it's reversed. There are points that stick out of it. And if you go onto my website, you can see what I mean. The sun ring is designed as broadcaster of energy. So if you put yourself in the sun ring, you stood within it, and then you put, let's say, a tablet of vitamin C within that sun ring, your body would start to absorb the broadcast of that vitamin C into your energy fields. It's a great way to add certain supplements to your body energetically. It also works with intent. All these tools work with intent. If you give it a instruction, the energy will carry out within the person's body, and that's how I fulfill all of my work when I'm working with somebody to remove a health problem. It's an intent that I make to remove whatever it is I find from my chart system. And there's another tool that I use. It's not a crystalline product. It's called a chestahedron. Now, the unique thing with sacred geometry is that it all has a mathematical equation that describes it. So, for instance, pyramids have the mathematical equation of pi, and so forth. Now, the unique thing with this chestahedron is that it does not have a mathematical equation. The person who designed it, Frank Chester, called it chestahedron. When he designed it, he took it to a mathematician friend of his who knows a lot about geometry and all of its aspects. And he looked at it and said, there is no math that describes this geometry. So what that does now is it gives me another tool in my arsenal that if I run across an entity, let's say the jinn, for instance, they have no defense against it because they don't know about it. They don't know the geometry of it. So it works very, very well to work against entities that don't expect you to pull out this out of your arsenal. The nice thing with the sacred geometry is when you use it, it takes the brunt of the energy fields that come out of the person. So, for instance, many people, when they are doing energy healing, if you're just using your hands, you may absorb that energy, and after a certain amount of time, you yourself might start to take on those energies that are making a person ill. Whereas the tool takes the hit and it vaporizes it and sends all the energy into ether or wherever you want to send it. A lot of people look at me and say, well, can't you just use your hands? What's wrong with you? And I said, no, I don't want to use my hands because I want the tool to enhance and amplify my intent. I want to work with the tool, with the geometry. Sacred geometry is the language of the universe. So when you're using that, you can talk to almost any component of the universe where you need help from. So for me, the tools are very important. They're not a crutch. They're not something that does the work for me. It works along with me in order to get the job done.
Funny you say they're not a crutch. In my interview with Stuart Swerdlow, that was an interview to remember, he kept making the assertion because you're infinite consciousness, you wouldn't need to buy any of this garbage because you could just heal yourself on your own. And on a similar note, some might assert, and well, I hate to ask you this, but it is a fair question nonetheless. One would ask, well, what's the sense in buying this stuff when I could just ask the archangels, spirit guides, and source to do the healing for me? Well, there are reasons why someone might want to do something like this. Some may get, among other things, people might get a little reassurance from using a down-to-earth thing rather than something that's a little out there, if you know what I mean, where they can't really be so sure that it's working. So other than that, what reasons would you recommend people to say, okay, this is not a crutch, just because you're infinite doesn't mean you can't utilize these, so clarify that, please. And also, why do you think it may be a good idea to utilize these things and spend the money for it rather than just ask the archangels and such to do the healing for you?
Ultimately, we are the healing tool ourselves. I don't work with the archangels or anything of that nature. I work within my own soul and source. The benefit of the tools, if you're somebody who is just learning, going through the paces of learning how to work with energy, the tools work as an aid to take your intent and amplify it, to raise the vibration of it so that it will do better for you. Somebody just learning Reiki is not going to be as good as somebody who's a Reiki master. So if you're taking the tools and using them with your intent, it will bring you to a higher level of ability to heal. And again, the tools will take the brunt of the hit. When you're removing an entity from somebody, it is a very, very serious thing. There are many times where I've heard and seen of people removing an entity, and all of a sudden that entity goes into them, and all of a sudden they have we'd call a possession. Then all of a sudden now the entity's got to go somewhere. So the tools help with that concept of things. It raises your vibration. It acts as a receiver. It acts as a generator. It works along with all universal energies to get the job done. I mean, if you need to use a tool to heal somebody's cancer, why not use everything you've got in order to help this person? And why take your ego and say, oh, I can just do it with my hands? No. Get all the help you can and make sure that whatever person you're working with gets the best treatment that they can.
Thank you. By the way, out of curiosity, were you at any of Rob Potter's Mount Shasta conferences?
No.
Okay, because some of these things that I see on the products page were things that people were utilizing at Rob Potter's conference, like the 7-inch single pyramid that were made of silver, copper, gold, platinum, and they were putting them on their heads, like wearing it around their head. It was supposed to help, all the things that pyramid can do for you. So, I'd like to get into that for a moment. Why don't you, in my interview with Rob Potter, he talked all about pyramid power, but why is it that some of these pyramids, what powers do they have? And also, I got into how they're made of different materials like copper, gold, silver, and platinum. One is some more expensive than the others, and the more expensive brands are naturally the ones that are probably going to give you more bang for the buck in terms of healing and clearing and all that. So, enlighten us on the science of a pyramid and how these and why the material that these pyramid things that people would wear like on their heads and such makes a difference.
The pyramids that we use, they're constructed of copper, which is very conductive of electricity, then coated with rhodium, and then they're coated with gold. Okay, they're all electroplated. The electroplating of the minerals itself adds to the whole concept of the geometry, so it's going to heighten the energy of it. It's going to bring it to another level. Some of the neutralization rings I have, some are plated in gold, some are plated in platinum. Platinum is about the strongest mineral that you can use to plate something with. It is a little higher than gold. It's got a bit different energy. It's more of a masculine energy, let's say, whereas the gold is a bit more of a feminine. So depending on the person and the treatment you're doing, you may want to use one over the other. Now, the pyramids that we use, so let's get into pyramids a little bit. The pyramids of Giza, those are the most famous, and there's pyramids all over the world. China, Bosnia is another big one. A lot of discoveries are being made there about pyramids. If you look at the geometry of the pyramid, it is in pi. Okay, but the slope of the pyramid is, I think it's 6.82 or something like that. What we do is we change the slope of our pyramid just slightly to about 7.1. Now, the pyramids of Egypt are designed to lock humanity into the third dimension consciousness. It's not going to enable us to rise in consciousness. It's going to keep us back from getting into those higher levels of energy. That's what we're here for, is to ascend. And the ascension process, as I said, is happening very quickly right now. A lot of people are feeling changes of energy in their body as we speak. We've changed the pyramid just a little bit so it doesn't lock us in. Another not commonly known thing about the pyramids of Egypt is if you look from the top down, from, let's say, a satellite photo or an airplane photo, you can see that there is maybe a half a degree indent within the base of the pyramid on each side. At the middle, there's a tiny little indent, which gives the pyramid a bit of a different shape. So in our pyramids, they don't have that. So our pyramids are designed to work past that third dimension lock to help raise people into a higher level of consciousness. And such is the same as the Vesica Pisces. It's designed to work within 4D, 5D, 6D, and higher to raise our vibration in that way. The coatings on the pyramid are important. They're not the do-all to end-all. The chestahedron that I use has no coating on it. It's just copper, and it works perfectly well. But if you can take something and make it go from 99% efficient to 99.1% efficient, I mean, you want to do everything you can to be the best that you can when you're doing this work. The more power you have behind you, the more you're going to slam those entities to the ground.
Right, and interesting thing you say about the pyramids in Giza keeping us stuck in 3D. I've heard some things that kind of resonate with that, but some things that kind of go against that. I mean, I'm not going to go off on a tangent with this, but in my interview with Carmen Bolter, who made the Pyramid Code, we talked about how all the different people like Christopher Dunn and also the Pyramid Code that Carmen Bolter made, and all the theories about what the pyramids were constructed and what they were used for. Akashic Records reader Andrew Bartzis claimed, and he could read the Akashic Records, so I'm assuming he's telling the truth here. He claims the pyramids at in Giza were built 803,000 years ago, and that does seem to fly in the face of what Robert Bauval says about the lining up with Orion's belt. But you have to understand, time is cyclical and synchronicity happens, and there's no reason why, if these entities that made the pyramid were of a high consciousness, they wouldn't realize that in 10,500 BC the pyramids would align in the way that Robert Bauval says. But what's interesting about that is the Bartzis has also said the Archon control system has been on Earth for, in some way, shape, or form, for the last 900,000 years. So it would have been built about 100,000 years after the start of the Archon control system. Also, George Kavaslis, in my interview with him, he talked about how he remembers in one of his past life being part of the group of people that came from Orion to build the pyramids on Earth. The pyramids were designed to lay out in the construction of Orion, with all due respect to Lisa Renee and Andrew Collins. Lisa Renee says the pyramids represents the stars of Sirius. Andrew Collins says they actually represent the stars of Cygnus. Well, if George Kavaslis is right, then those people are mistaken, because Kavaslis says, I remember my past life, I was part of the group that came to build the pyramids. It was done to anchor the male energy of Orion to the Earth. And when I hear anchor male energy, I think, well, you realize Mother Earth is divine feminine, Mother Earth. So naturally, they would, if they wanted to suppress the consciousness, they would try to increase the masculine energy. Although one would think, well, does that necessarily mean they're doing a bad thing when they're anchoring the male energy? So could you maybe clarify this? When he says they're anchoring the male energy, do you think they had bad intentions when they did that, or were they actually trying to do something good, and maybe it maybe went the wrong way and ended up suppressing Earth's consciousness and not letting the divine feminine do its part, if you know what I mean?
Everything that's said by everyone and anyone, including myself, needs to be taken with a grain of salt. I mean, if George Casavelas said he was there and built the pyramids, I mean, he's one of the one persons that resonates mostly with me with the work that I'm doing. We have never talked to the guy. I've watched some of his videos. A lot of his work does resonate with what I'm doing. So everything in the universe, you almost have to consider it's all about power. Who's got power over? And so were they constructed to keep us in this realm as a bad thing? That resonates with me. That's what happens. Ultimately, way back then, they knew about the ascension, about this rise in consciousness. So ultimately, there's maybe some reason didn't want that ascension process to happen. That's all that comes off the top of my head about the whole thing. Now, one thing that I was doing for people is removing something called a pyramid curse. I would consider you have this curse of the pyramid that keeps you in this lower level, third dimension energy. Were the pyramids built to harbor the masculine energies to keep them here on Earth? I believe so. They were put here for some reason in the shape of Orion's belt or whatever to match up with some kind of energy harmonizing it back and forth to the Earth to create this scenario of trying to keep people from ascending. That's what I think it is.
The Ankh. Now, interesting thing about the Ankh, it sort of looks like the symbol for feminine. You got masculine, feminine. The masculine is a circle with like an arrow sticking out of it. The feminine looks more like an Ankh. And the Egyptians, they were very, very big on the feminine energy. It seemed like the female was very, very prominent in ancient Egypt. They really wanted to show that the divine feminine needs to be respected, and maybe the Ankh was a way of doing that. Jason Martell kind of has a weird theory about this. I don't know, maybe he's a little bit too obsessed with the work of Zecharia Sitchin and all that, but he said maybe the Ankh, because it sounds like Anunnaki, it has some connection there, but I don't know about that. Maybe it could be because what's his name? Akhenaten, the one of the most controversial of all Egyptian pharaohs. His name sort of also has the Ankh in it, and also Tutankhamun. He was alleged to be some think was this. It's not provable, but there is evidence suggesting he was a son of Akhenaten. And George Kavaslis asserts Akhenaten was an Anunnaki who was trying to was actually trying to do good for ancient Egypt, and the bad guys in his time were actually the priestly caste who were trying to shut him up. And Carmen Bolter does not agree with that. She said in my interview with her that she kind of stepped out of the room and walked away when George said that, because nothing good is said about Akhenaten. Well, is it possible the reason nothing good is said about him is because the priestly caste is the bad guys and they were trying to shut him up and paint him in a bad light? Well, okay, I'm digressing a little bit here, but I'm trying to connect some dots here between what the Ankh is, how it connects with the feminine, Akhenaten, the Anunnaki, if there are connections there. So, well, I've babbled long enough. Why don't you tell us the science behind how the crystalline Ankh works and all this other stuff I've said? Do you have any comments on any of it?
Absolutely. Now, the Ankh, I mean, we can go forever and split hairs about what is the meaning of it compared to all the pharaohs. That's a conversation that can go forever. What we like to use the Ankh for, what it works really good for, is gridding a room. So if you put one in each corner of the room, maybe with a small piece of organite, it helps to grid the room. Some people use it as a backing plate. So if you're, let's say, pointing pyramid at somebody's heart, if you put the Ankh on their back, adjacent from the pyramid, it works as a great grounding plate to help hold the energy so it can do its work. And then when you're finished, you pull it all away and then the energy can then leave. So it works as a good grounding plate. You can put your right foot on it while you're doing energy work with somebody to help ground a little bit if needed be. A lot of people use it for different things. Now, all of these tools, they don't come with instructions because ultimately there is none. Ultimately, it's whatever your intuition and consciousness says to do with them. So some people will point the base of the pyramid at somebody and do some work. Some people will point the point of the pyramid at somebody. It all depends on how you want to use that tool, because again, all it's doing is taking your intent and your will, amplifying it and putting it to work. The Ankh, I mean, there's some general things you can do with it, but ultimately, whatever you feel you want to do with it, that's what you can do with it.
All right, fair enough response there. Also, interesting thing about the Egyptians, if you look in the hieroglyphs, there's a prominent pose that seems very dominant there in a lot of the hieroglyphs, where the Egyptians, they're not really walking when they do this. They're actually standing like that in a pose. They have the left leg half a step in front of the right leg. And when I use Egyptian healing rods often, I sometimes walk with them on a nature trail, or sometimes I stand facing the sun as the instructions that came with them go. They say hold the rods down by your side, hold them the right way with the right side up, the side that had the hieroglyph sticker on. Might not have the stickers anymore, but the side that would have the sticker, hold it that way, and the right hand hold the copper one, the zinc one in the left hand, and there's different varieties of them. I got the ones that are run-of-the-mill, $400, so that'll get you from point A to point B, but there's cheap ones, and then there's like $700 ones, which allegedly take you to higher levels of consciousness. And well, I don't know if they all have the same instructions, but the ones that I got, the $400 ones, they say hold them by your side, smile while facing the sun, squeeze the rods for 15 seconds, and then after 15 seconds, loosen the grip, hold them for 9 to 18 minutes, and then and we'll just hold that pose, and you're supposed to stand with your left leg half a step in front of the right leg. That's the way they stood in the Egyptian hieroglyphs. So do you have any idea what is the significance behind standing in that specific pose, why the Egyptians thought it was such a prominent, important pose that it was worthy of putting in the hieroglyphs all everywhere?
Well, the one thing that comes to mind with the left foot, now the left side of the body is the feminine body, the right side of the body is the masculine body. So the left foot forward puts attention to the feminine. As you said, that the Egyptians were very much into praising and honoring the feminine. So that's something I have heard that resonates highly with me. As far as the other things go, I mean, it's all to do with geometry and intent and what does this mean, what does that mean? And of course, we can, again, talk forever as to what it really is. All these different tools, different methods, different ideals, different concepts. Now, you talk with basically almost anybody, and everybody has an opinion. When I'm doing my work, Andrew, what I notice is that there's proof within my philosophy. So when I'm doing a healing on somebody, and I take some of these concepts and I put them into practice, and I do the energy clearing, and somebody all of a sudden their problem is gone, or they feel a lot better right away, you know that there's something to it. Let's take, for instance, the concept of the black goo. Harold Kautzvala, he came up with this concept, and it's a very interesting concept. It's got a lot of bite to it. But I use that within my chart system to see if it comes up for people, and it never really comes up for people. Now, that could mean one of two things. Either it doesn't have any validity, or we're not at the right time within our ascension to use it yet. So that is all of the concepts you're talking about. The Egyptians, the way they're holding things, different Egyptian shape and geometries. If you resonate with the way you stand with these rods, then that's the way you need to stand with those rods, where somebody else might use them a little differently. I mean, basically, it's just a starting point where you can take that tool and use it differently. If you stood 1 degree off or 1 degree back or something of that nature, you might notice, hey, there's a shift in energy. So it's a good starting point to have these instructions, but ultimately, whatever you need to do with them at that specific time, is you're going to notice it within an energy shift or some type of movement within your body.
Right, and also the way the stereotypical way that Egyptians were known for walking, which of course is popularized in that song by the Bangles, "Walk Like an Egyptian." Is there any metaphysical science behind how walking like that does actually, with one hand sliding it forward, the other hand upside down relative to that, and walking up the street in such a way? Is there really any way that walking like that does move the energy through your body in such a way that the Egyptians did in fact walk like that, and if they did it, they knew what they were doing because it actually helped them metaphysically?
Maybe they were dancing.
Oh.
Again, the Egyptian civilization is certainly one of mysticism in certain ways, just like the Mayans and all the others. You know, we can only see what we see within the hieroglyphs and in statues, and of course, I mean, they depicted themselves in certain ways for certain reasons, of course. But are we overthinking it? Maybe in certain ways. I don't know. Is there any kind of metaphysical concept to the way they're depicted? Possibly. But at this point, it looks cool. For me, it just kind of looks cool.
All right, fair enough. It looks cool, so maybe that's why they did it. All right, looking at some of these other things, Shungite water stones. Well, do the stones have water in them, or do they have Shungite in them? Okay, why don't you clarify exactly what those are, what they're used for?
And there's only one place in the world that it's located, and it's in a city in Russia. There's a huge lake. And there's a lot of deposits of it. And Shungite has been shown to have a lot of good healing effects on people. There are different shapes of Shungite. There's pyramids, there's spheres. There's something called pharaoh rod. Go back to the Egyptian. When you look and you see a pharaoh sitting on his throne, he's got his hands on his knees. So these rods are designed to hold within your hands, put them on your knees, and it's going to circulate the energy frequency of the Shungite through your body to help maybe realign some cells or some energy fields or something like that. The Shungite water stones are designed to take and put within a gallon jug of water. And what happens is the Shungite itself, it's got a carbon atom. They call it a fullerene. That the person who discovered the molecular structure of Shungite, his name was Fuller. Okay, so we call it a fullerene. And it looks like a soccer ball, so it's very absorbent. The Shungite will remove a lot of the toxicity out of the water, the chlorine, the fluorides, and anything else that might be in there to help purify the water. And that usually happens within a 24-hour period. Now, if you let the water sit for 3 days, 72 hours, it now has a potential as a healing mechanism. So you can take that water because it does have consciousness, okay, because of the Shungite. And if you put intent into that water to purify your liver, enhance your brain, whatever you do, that Shungite is going to go in and start doing it. By putting intent into the water, it's going to help with the healing process. It's going to help to detox your body a little bit because it is going to pull out certain types of toxins. Now, we did a test on the water. We took Shungite water and we put it in a plastic cup. The water should have been getting lower in toxicity. We measure that by measuring the total dissolved solids, TDSs. So we found that, holy mackerel, the TDS, the toxicity is going up. That's because the Shungite was pulling the toxins out of the plastic cup. Okay, so on the instructions of the Shungite, it'll say to use glass or ceramics, never a plastic, because it will pull toxicity out of the plastic. So that way we know by seeing a scientific experiment that it does do something. It does pull toxicity out of something.
But moving on, liquid light monatomic Ormus gold water. Okay, I'm assuming you don't drink this water. Well, if you did drink it, would it actually be a bad idea? Would it actually have a little magic on you? Because, people, they've talked about how if you ingest monatomic stuff, you can transverse dimensions, among other things. I have to listen to my interview with David Kane about that, which I did way back in the day. He talks all about that. Jim Mars has also done some good presentations on monatomic elements, and also explained how maybe the reason we faked the whole war in Iraq and staged that to justify invading it was to steal monatomic technology of sorts. But this monatomic Ormus gold water, if you don't ingest it, what do you do with it, and what's in it besides Ormus and water?
This monatomic gold is something you ingest, but it's a very low level, so it's nothing that's going to blow your aura to bits. So what we do is we take this water, I forget what the ppm is, it's not that incredibly high, and I add a lot of energy to it. So I give it consciousness to do specific things, okay, to work within your soul, to work within the cells of your body, to help spin them the right way. And the Ormus gold water is a very good carrier for energy intent. Okay, many different waters are. Silver is good, platinum is good, but the gold really holds a frequency very well. So I like to use that to enhance it with frequency and intent, so that when you're taking it, you're getting a nice gradual shift instead of a full-blown look out, there goes your aura.
Thank you. And clearing spray, is this a spray that, what do you spray it on, and can you actually ingest it?
Frequency enhanced Shungite water, actually. And what it contains is the frequencies of the neutralization ring. And then there's a few other negativity intents within it. So let's say you're at a business meeting and the meeting's kind of heated and somebody's in your office and a lot of negativity flying around. If you take this spray and just spray it on the chair, maybe within the area, it's going to dissipate a lot of negative energy so that the energy can calm down in your room. A lot of these products are designed for people who are very sensitive in energy, so that you can feel and notice something is happening. But again, anybody can use them, and you just want to know that you've cleared out some negative energies. The clearing spray works very, very well. You don't need a lot of it, and it will last you a long time. So you can spray it on your food. You can spray it on anything that you want and you feel may have some negative energy attached to it.
The wristbands, now pretty straightforward what you do with this, unlike some other products where they don't really come with instructions. You use them as you want. This one, it's a wristband. You wear it on your wrist. But do you necessarily have to wear it on your wrist? Are there other uses you can think of for it? And also, aside from the band part, what is the like the pendant circular thing in the band comprised of? And for that matter, does the material in the band make a big difference in regards to how well the pendant like material that's the prominent part of the wristband can work?
The wristband itself, if you look at it, it says balance band, and you're thinking, hey, wait a minute, I've seen these things before. They're negative ions, and people buy them and wear them, and it's supposed to enhance whatever. What I really like them for is they hold a frequency. And I take these wristbands. Now, one, I make a wristband for sleep. So if you have trouble sleeping at night, you wear one of these maybe an hour before you go to bed, and all those annoying anxieties start to go away. Your body will recalibrate a little bit so that it'll allow you to sleep. I get a lot of good results with the sleep band. That's why I market it. So ultimately, the wristband is just a medium for the frequencies that I'm putting into it. So it's something you can use on a daily basis. You've got it all the time. You keep on wearing it day after day after day, every night, and it's going to help you. Female hormone balancing wristband works extremely well. My wife loves it, and so do I, for that matter. So every time that at her monthly cycle's coming around, she wears it, and any kind of mood swings are a lot less. Any kind of disruption within her system is a lot less. They work very, very well. And I can make a wristband for anything. But what I did is I took some specific ones that I knew that people would feel a use for, ones that I have tested with different groups of people and found that there was good results. I don't want to sell anything to anybody. I want to make sure that it's going to work. So all of the wristbands that I have on the site, there's one for stress, one for fatigue, there's one for brain enhancement, let's say, they all have a varying degree of success within most people. You look at the hologram. A hologram is like a multi-dimension within it, let's say. So it'll hold the frequencies at a deeper frequency rate so that they're not going to dissolve right away. Much like a homeopathic remedy, if you put the homeopathic remedy on the ground, it grounds out and then the energy has gone off it. These ones are pre-grounded. Negative ions within it are grounding. And then, so the energies I put in it are going to stay there for a long, long time.
Thank you very much. I got a good question. Maybe we might as well end on this note. We've covered a lot, and but in regards to, you mentioned ascension, what ascension is all about, what it's not about. A lot of controversy around that. George Kavaslis has said people have blown it into an ascension deception, and that's very prominent right now in the year 2017. I'm going to pick on him again. Ray Kusalanich, prominent ET contactee. I'm sure he's a genuine ET contactee, but he's kind of been suckered, I think, into believing some false light narrative that maybe his ETs of a different consciousness are subscribing to, and they don't realize that this is not how it works in our reality, where he basically said everything that Andromeda Council contactee Tolek said would happen in January 2014 but didn't happen. That's going to happen in 2017. And Ray Kusalanich, he's basically disappeared off the face of the earth. He's not responding to anything on Facebook. Hasn't been around in a while, and kind of makes people wonder, is he realize he's wrong and he's just hiding because he doesn't know what to tell people, like, I was wrong? How's he going to come out and say that? Or is he just waiting for his ETs to give him some information to relay? But he did make it seem like at some point this year we're all going to morph and change into crystalline bodies. We're going to grow several feet in height, and we're going to be more crystalline in nature. We won't have to eat to survive, won't have to have sex to reproduce, and all those other things that are of a 4D, 5D nature that's different from what other people think of as 4D and 5D. He thinks of it as a full-blown transformation in appearance and composition, and he has said in my interview with him that would be happening in this was a couple years ago when I interviewed him, that this will be happening in 2017. And I'm thinking, okay, so when January 1st 2018 comes around, and we're still in the same carbon-based bodies that we are, and there isn't much difference in terms of appearance, should we all be hassling the living hell out of Ray Kusalanich and saying, okay, you better explain to us what's wrong here, and until you give an answer, then we have every right to hassle and harass the hell out of you? Because a lot of people hassled Tolek when he was mistaken about January 2014, and he came out and explained the reasons behind why what he said would happen did not happen, and people can believe whatever they will, but hey, he was willing to come out. He knew he had to, because a lot of people were going to give him grief if he didn't. So I hope, Ray Kusalanich, if you're listening, you're going to do the same thing when January 2018 comes around, and if things aren't any different. But I'm digressing. My question for you, basically, what do you see ascension as? And also on that note, what some people see have a different taste on what our world would look like when we ascend. I mean, some people can imagine crystals and pendants and gemstones everywhere, and we're going to be utilizing things like the things that you sell on your site to a much greater extent. But other people would say, no, we wouldn't have to use those things as much, because when we ascend, we're going to realize we're all infinite, so there really isn't going to be a need to have crystals and gemstones all over the place, because we'll be able to utilize their powers within ourselves. So no sense in having those things. Well, I don't know. It's kind of an agree to disagree kind of thing. But what do you see as ascension as? And do you think that the things like you sell and other crystals and gemstones, they'll be more prominent in our reality after we go through quote unquote ascension, whatever it may be?
What I see as ascension, of course, everybody's got their opinion and they're welcome to it. And a lot of people talk a big talk about it, the crystalline body, the this, the that. What I see on a daily basis within my work, and again, here's proof in the pudding with what I'm doing, is I'm finding a lot more answers to questions. So my focus is always to work on a health problem. If I'm working on somebody, let's say with a very stubborn health problem, somebody with ALS, cerebral palsy, dementia, whatever, all these big health problems that really have no rhyme or reason why people have them. A lot of people will say, oh, it's an excess heavy metal, it's a deficiency, blah, blah, blah. But at the beginning of it, there's always some kind of energy problem. So what I get on a weekly basis is more and more information and knowledge as to what is really going on in the universe that's affecting us through quantum entanglement. So one of the biggest things that I find is that we are in a parallel. Okay, there's 7 different Earths in a parallel. We are parallel number 2. And parallel number 6 is a lot of bad things happening. Where we have a twin, let's say on parallel 6, we're connected through quantum entanglement because it's the same basic energy. So if there's something bad going on there, if you hit yourself in the head with a hammer on parallel 6, you get a headache in parallel 2, okay? What I'm finding is that a lot of these things that are affecting us in parallel 2 are going to start disconnecting. We're going to start losing them. So parallel 6 is on its way out. I've been clearing that out of people on a daily basis, getting great results. Another thing that's going to happen is we're going to be left alone. So if you look at the concept of reptilian entities and the greys and the jinn and all this AI and all this other stuff that affects us on an energy etheric level, we're going to start to be left alone. Our minds are not going to become our own. We're not going to be fed all of this mind garbage, MK Ultra, blah, 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 chemtrails. All that stuff is going to leave us alone. For the awakened people, we're going to know that, okay, things are changing. Things are calmer. I have my own thoughts now. This doesn't cause me anxiety. I can deal with things a lot easier. My focus is a lot clearer. So a lot of that is going to happen. Basically, it's more of being left alone, to realize your own potential, to realize that you have the willpower, the mind power, the intent through love to do whatever you need to do to enhance your life. Now, the key here is love. The whole concept of ascension is a reconnecting with true love. That's not kissy, kissy, huggy, huggy. Love is the energy, the highest energy of the universe that nothing else will want to be around. So anything of a dark nature won't want to be around this. It's a very powerful energy. What I'm seeing, we're going to be left alone. We're going to be able to conceive our own thoughts, make our own decisions without being swayed left or right or being confused. It's going to be a very peaceful time. Okay, is there still going to be wars and stuff like that? The answer is yes, but maybe at a much lower level. Okay, all of the crap that we're seeing on a daily basis is going to start to get lower and lower and lower. We're going to start to realize that, hey, that certain realities are going to come to light. Maybe disclosure about aliens finally comes out. And disclosure has happened. You look on the internet, it's everywhere. And many intelligent people are talking about it. And I've even seen a lot of new pictures coming out that there's no doubt that what's going on. The realization of certain things is going to come about. Knowledge about certain things is coming about. And again, I get daily knowledge about how the reptilian DNA within us is affecting us, and how the jinn are creating different thoughts within our minds. All of that is going to go away. It's going to be an ascension of peace, an ascension of love into these higher vibrations that is going to leave us feeling a lot more calmer.
I think we covered a lot of things. It was a pleasure having you on. I wish you the best of luck. Good luck on your future endeavors, and enjoy the rest of your trek throughout infinite consciousness. Chris Kehler.
Andrew, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.